The biggest developments in the Nolan Wells case and the biggest slap in the face of the Nolan Wells family isn't coming from law enforcement. It is coming from the father of one of the kids that are involved in the actual investigation right now. It's coming from the courtroom, or at least it may soon be coming from the courtroom. The father of one of the young men who was with Nolan Wells has publicly announced that he intends to sue civil rights attorney Ben Crump for defamation. That's like the Joker saying he's going to get in the boxing ring with Superman. The balls on this guy is absolutely amazing. If that lawsuit was filed, it could become one of the most closely watched legal battles connected to this case thus far. Not because it determines what happened to Nolan, which it should be focused on, but because it could test where the lines exist between advocating for your client and making public statements that allegedly damage someone's reputation. It also requires another question. If Ben Crump is sued, which is more than likely will not happen, will the discovery process reveal information the public has not seen yet? Could depositions and documents and electronic communications be brought forward, or testimony provide additional insight into what happened before Nolan disappeared? And Ben might not want to see that. Those questions remain unanswered. But if litigation moves forward, they may eventually become part of the public record. Be careful what you ask for, Ben. You might get exactly what you're asking for. I'm Esco Latimer, and welcome to Money and Politics Simplified. Today's story is about far more than one threatened lawsuit, let's be honest. It's about free speech, which I am all in favor for. The First Amendment, defamation law, public advocacy, and how high-profile investigations can create additional legal battles completely separate from the underlying tragedy, which we should be focused on. And as always, everyone, we're going to simplify it. According to multiple public reports, Ben Hudson, the father of Warren Hudson, has publicly stated that he intends to sue attorney Ben Crump for defamation. I have seen a lot of white men do this lately, but they keep losing when they try it. Hudson argues that public statements made by Crump have contributed to widespread public belief that Warren Hudson and other young men were responsible for Nolan Wells' death. Hudson says his family has experienced harassment, like the Nolan family has. Threats, Nolan family. Online attacks, Nolan family. Public condemnation, Nolan family. Ben Crump has publicly responded that his focus remains on seeking justice for Nolan Wells, and he is not distracted by the threatened lawsuit. Here's the important distinction. As of today, no publicly confirmed lawsuit has been filed. Right now, this remains a threatened lawsuit. That legal distinction matters. Threat versus actual. Many people misunderstand defamation law. Defamation isn't simply saying something someone dislikes. Generally speaking, a plaintiff must prove several legal elements, and it must have all the elements. Those often include a false statement of fact, publication of that statement to another person, harm to reputation, and depending on whether the plaintiff is considered a public or private figure. At this point, Warren, the boy, is a public figure, especially since he did all those interviews with Brandon Tatum. He is now a public figure. He's open to more scrutiny. Proof of negligence and actual malice. Actual malice is often misunderstood as well. It doesn't mean anger, and it doesn't mean hostility. It means making a statement while knowing it is false or acting with reckless disregard for whether it is true. That is a demanding legal standard that most cases never survive, especially when the speech involves matters of significant public concern. The key word here is public concern. Public concern to know what happened to Nolan Wells. If this lawsuit is actually filed, it would be a financial nightmare on top of everything else for the Warrens family. The litigation itself could become important. Discovery allows both sides to request evidence. Depending on the court's rulings, that process could include things like the depositions could be released, emails, text messages, communications, interview notes, public statements, and other evidence relevant to the claims and defenses. Now, whether any of that would relate to Nolan Wells' death depends entirely on the court and what it determines is legally relevant. A defamation lawsuit is not a criminal investigation. It's civil. It's not automatically a tool to uncover every fact surrounding Nolan's death. But lawsuits often produce testimony and documents that were not previously public. Again, Ben, be careful what you ask for. This case raises a broader issue. When attorneys represent grieving families, they frequently do things like they speak publicly. Sometimes those statements encourage additional witnesses to come forward. We call that justice. Sometimes they increase pressure on investigators. We call that justice. Sometimes they help cases from disappearing from public attention. Again, justice. But individuals who have not been charged with crimes also possess legal rights. This is fair. If they believe false statements have damaged their reputations, well, they may seek legal remedies. That is also called what, everyone? Justice. Whether they ultimately succeed depends on the evidence, not simply on public opinion. No one has been criminally charged in Nolan Wells' death as of yet. That remains true still to this day. The investigation continues. That means everyone involved, families, friends, attorneys, journalists, content creators like myself, and members of the public are operating in an environment filled with unanswered questions. And you know how to fix that? Give us the information. That makes precision more important than ever at this point. We must distinguish between facts, witness accounts, opinions, allegations, speculation. Those categories are not interchangeable at all, nor should they ever be. If this lawsuit moves forward, which again, I don't believe it will, many people will naturally wonder whether discovery uncovers additional information. It might, or it might not. If I were Warren's dad, I would just sit down and shut my mouth. That depends entirely on what evidence is relevant to the legal issues before the court. People should not assume that filing a defamation lawsuit automatically opens every investigative file, nor should they assume it reveals nothing. Every lawsuit develops according to the facts, the legal claims, the court's rulings, and the evidence exchanged during discovery could damage Warren more than help him. High-profile investigations create powerful emotions. We all can agree on that. Families grieve, what it should be. Communities divide. Social media amplifies rumors. Public pressure grows. That makes responsible reporting even more important than ever. No one should be convicted through public opinion. No family should be silenced for asking questions either, Ben. No witness should be threatened. No attorney should be presumed liable simply because they're doing their job and someone announces an intention to sue them because they're doing their job. Courts do that, not headlines. Courts determine legal liability, not people. That's our system. Those are our rules, and that is what we're going to stick to, everyone. And as always, let's simplify this. Ben Hudson has publicly stated that he intends to file a defamation lawsuit against Ben Crump. That's a joke. No litigation has been filed. The courts will evaluate whether any challenge statements satisfy a legal requirement if it is filed for defamation. The lawsuit will be legally separate from the criminal investigation into the Nolan Wells death. It could become another important chapter in the broader public story surrounding the Nolan Wells case. Here's where I stand. People deserve the right to seek justice, even being Warren's dad, unfortunately. People deserve the right to defend their reputations. Both principles can exist at the same time, and they should. Investigators should continue following the evidence regarding Nolan Wells' death, and public opinion should avoid treating either side's allegations as established fact before the evidence is presented. Justice requires evidence, not assumptions, not emotions, and not social media narratives. But it is an insult to the dead young man who your son says was his best friend. Ben and his wife, Ashley, the judge, are so callous to keep distracting from the true goal here, which is to find out how Nolan Xavier Wells died and to get him justice if there was foul play. What do you think? Should attorneys speak publicly during active investigations and or receive the same amount of First Amendment protection? Or should they face greater legal accountability if their public statements are unfairly damaged? The reputations of people who have not been charged with crimes. Let me know in the comments below. I don't know. They should be able to speak. I'm Mexico Latimer. Please remember to like, follow, share, and comment. This is Money in Politics Simplified. Stay informed, stay engaged, because when you understand the facts between Ben Hudson, which is Warren's dad, and trying to sue Ben Crump for defamation, which is a joke, you understand the politics here in the United States.
Talking money, talking power. Follow the paper and you find a throne. Deals in the back while the cameras roll. Who's funding fear? Who's buying hope? Who's pulling strings every time we vote?